Sanders.
Love that.
So who's left for the Patriots at 4? Wide receiver / cornerback Travis Hunter.
That doesn't feel fair. That doesn't feel fair.
Travis Hunter, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis. Ooh, baby. Like that, and then also playing wide receiver. Like that a lot.
I feel like you need him more as a wide receiver than you do a corner.
I like him better as a corner, but you're right in terms of positional need. Other big names within the mock draft 3.0 to keep in mind here. Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State, number 6 overall to the Raiders. And in my opinion, the juiciest pick of his top 10, the Mel Kiper Jr. mock draft 3.0, Jackson Dart, number 9 overall, New Orleans Saints, Ole Miss. Guys, initial reactions to Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft 3.0.
Jackson Dart going in the top 10 is really aggressive. Not to say that he doesn't have the physical talent, but there are a lot of NFL throws that you just didn't see him make in the collegiate ranks because Lane Kiffin's offense didn't call for him to do it at Ole Miss. I mean, it was bubble screens and go routes. That's it. I mean, there weren't any timing routes, any in-breakers, things where he's got to anticipate, read out the coverage, and deliver the ball to the open man. I think that is a huge, huge projection, and that is a huge reach for the New Orleans Saints, an organization, a team that has a lot of needs. I don't know that Jackson Dart is the way that I would go, especially if you have a guy in Derek Carr, if he's healthy, that could give you competent quarterback play.
I agree that I think it's an overdraft, but I could also absolutely see this playing out. Remember last year we were a bit surprised that Sean Payton wanted to go with Bo Nix when he did, but that ended up working out because he identified a guy that I can build around, and he has the qualities that I know I can extract the best out of him. Maybe Kellen Moore is thinking the same thing about Jackson Dart. He's coming in there. He obviously would love to put his fingerprints on this team. What a better way to do that than by getting a guy that can be your quarterback and you can grow together. And we know that a quarterback is the most important currency in all of sports. So I would not be surprised to see Jackson Dart go in the top 10 because this is what happens when it comes to quarterbacks in the draft.
What you just said is Mel Kiper Jr.'s reasoning. So in the notes for this, and Mel is going to join us tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as he does each and every Wednesday here on Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Go back on the podcast and listen. That Jackson Dart's been getting more and more buzz in league circles, and Mel thinks the new coach in New Orleans, Kellen Moore, will want to land his own guy to take over for Derek Carr down the road. Now, here's what I'll tell you. I'm a big believer that if you find your quarterback, go take him, even if the rest of us disagree, right? I never had an issue with the Chicago Bears trading up one slot to take Mitch Trubisky. I had an issue with them being wrong about it. But I don't have an issue conceptually about if this is your guy, who cares where you draft him? It does not matter. If the New England Patriots theoretically had the number 1 overall pick when they drafted Tom Brady and not 199, and they said this is going to be the greatest player ever, no issue with that, regardless of where Mel or anybody else grades him. You just better be right. Conceptually, this plan makes sense. If Jackson Dart is good and you have Derek Carr as a bridge guy, the New Orleans Saints, you may not like the plan, but at least you could sit back and say, I get it. I get what the plan is. Derek Carr, professional guy, not going to create a scene. He's going to play out 1 year, and he's going to hand it off to Jackson Dart, and they're drafting a quarterback when they want one, not when they need one, even though I think they need one as well. I think this kind of makes sense. The problem is if what Cece said is true. He ain't that good. That's the problem. But you brought up a good point. Isn't that what we said about Bo Nix a year ago? Is that maybe he's an overdraft? And Sean Payton sat back and said, I don't care.
He said, I got the same feeling watching him that I did Patrick Mahomes.
Now, that's stupid.
Sure,
but it worked out.
But here's what I will say about the difference between what Bo Nix did at Oregon and Auburn versus what Jackson Dart did. And maybe it's more so Oregon than Auburn, but like with Jackson Dart, it was all RPOs, all quick hitting passes, bubble screens.
Wasn't a pro offense.
It wasn't a pro offense. It wasn't an offense that asked him to throw with anticipation. It wasn't an offense that asked him to layer a lot of throws between the second and third levels of the defense. He didn't have to do that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that he can't do that stuff. We just hadn't seen it.
Okay.
And so it's a projection. Now, the physical talent is there. The arm talent is there. But, I mean, again, it's a risk. It's a huge risk. Now, these NFL coaches, they have egos that are huge. And there's going to be a coach that looks at Jackson Dart and says, yeah, I can get a franchise quarterback out of that guy. I see something that nobody else does. it's a heck of a gamble for Kellen Moore to make, especially given the state of the New Orleans Saints roster.
We're going to have a lot more on this as Mel Kiper has his mock draft special on SportsCenter tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And we will continue this discussion, obviously. Jackson Dart.
Have some success, which he didn't have during his New York Jets tenure, and change the way that we talk about his football career as a whole.
CeCe.
Retirement.
Oh.
I think he's done. I've seen the way this thing has trended over the last 3 years. The last season in Green Bay, of course, the injured first season with the Jets, and then this past year where the Jets went 5-12 with him starting all 17 games. The Jets actually had a better record in the season that he did play than the season that he didn't play versus the season that he did. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is the same player anymore, and changing the environment is only going to highlight that he is past his prime. He's past his playing days where he can actually make an impact on a team winning. It becomes clear and obvious if he goes to Minnesota and he embarrasses himself on the way to tanking whatever potential that team had the next couple of seasons to compete for a championship.
What a nightmare that would be.
I just switched mine. I had Minnesota initially, and I think you made a good argument, Smalls, but now I'm switching it actually. Rodgers to Pittsburgh, and here's why. Best possible outcome for Rodgers is to prove that he can be coached and he can assimilate to a full roster and not have to be the focal point at all times. Leave us with the lasting memory of, I'm one of the guys. I'm not only the guy. You're shaking your head because you know it's impossible, but I'm saying...
No, because if he went to Minnesota and had the season that Sam Darnold did last year, if he went to Minnesota and won 14 games, we wouldn't care if he went to Egypt or not. We would be talking about how he changed the narrative, how he still had something left in the tank. Winning is the best deodorant.
Right. Yeah, and the Jets situation just fades into the abyss.
It's a Jets thing more than a Rodgers thing.
It is. But if he goes to Minnesota or if he goes to Pittsburgh and stinks up the joint, then all of a sudden it's not a Jets thing. It's a him thing.
Both of those places, if you can't have success there, that's a problem.
And it's not fair because the number of years is way greater, but we'll say 2 stops bad, 1 stop good. Or great, iconic. Right? 2, like Jets and +1. Not good. 2
bad stops, 1 Hall of Fame stop.
Right. Better way of saying it. Thank you. Best possible outcome. Russell Wilson, Smalls.
I think Russ to the Browns makes a lot of sense, mainly because he provides an upgrade for them at the position they had last year. He didn't really turn the ball over last year. He only had 5 interceptions, which obviously was a huge problem for Jameis Winston and the Cleveland Browns. And you know that Russ has a finite amount of time left in his football career. So if you did want to draft a quarterback, he could be a good transitional asset for you there. And I think he would play, and it would be a good spot for him.
Yeah, I think it's the Cleveland Browns, too, with the caveat of them taking a pass catcher, a touchdown scorer with the 2nd overall pick. I don't like the idea of Russ going into the season with only 2 weapons in David Njoku and Jerry Jeudy. It feels like more of the same in what he came out of with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their offensive line is solid, a lot more solid in Cleveland than Pittsburgh, but I would like to see them add another playmaker for Russ at this stage in his career because I don't think he's capable of elevating the play of everybody around him.
I think best possible outcome for Russ is going back to the Steelers. That's clearly where he wants to go, his relationship with DK Metcalf. I think that's the best possible outcome for him. Best possible outcome for the Steelers. I'll start us off. Best possible outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion, is missing out on everyone. You have to learn this can't be how you're going to do it every year.
You have to tank?
No, you don't have to tank. It's Mike Tomlin can only do so much for so long to save you from yourself.
But then that you're suggesting if they don't have somebody or don't get the person they want there, then they will lose games and be in a better position to draft somebody next year.
So be it.
But that's what you're saying would be the positive that comes out of this, right?
I think the best possible outcome for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to be left there with their pants down, basically. Like, what the hell just happened? That's a saying. I don't mean literally. I just, like, what just happened? We went all in for Aaron Rodgers. He retired or went to the Vikings. We told Russ we didn't want him, so he went to the Browns. We didn't go all in for Fields, so he went to the Jets. We didn't blow you away in L.A.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn làm vòng. Và hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là áo đen. Mọi người, hôm nay vòng của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là áo trắng. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu làm nhé.
Đâu ra